Good afternoon. The time is now 3 p.m. and I want to go ahead and call to order the regular and certification meeting of the Cobb County Board of Elections, again at 3 p.m. And with that, I will invite all those willing and able to rise with me to recite our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to take a look at the agenda for this afternoon's meeting? Any proposed revisions, comments, or amendments?
I do have a comment.
Yes.
Do we need to also add the pre-certification meeting, or the,
Can you turn your mic
we
on,
don't,
please?
that'll come after, right?
Your Mike, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. You're saying that
I already
pre-cert-
thought it through. I thought possibly we needed the pre-certification meeting, but we can do that at the next board meeting, correct?
That's right.
Yeah,
The pre-cert
okay.
meeting following the April 29th general election.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, we can do that afterwards. Anything further? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Mossbacher. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the agenda as provided. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously, noting that Mr. Bruning, unfortunately, is not with us. His spouse, his wife, is having hip replacement surgery today. So we'll just note in the meeting minutes that he is not present with us today. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is public comment. Note that we did not have anyone sign up for public comment virtually. We have 3 members of the public that will join us here, or have joined us here, and will participate in public comment. First up is Miss Susie Clark. Yep, right up there.
Watch your step.
Hi, I've been meaning to come here for some time.
Well, welcome.
I've been going to Board of Commissions meeting and others, but anyways, been meaning to get here. I am an elections poll worker. My daughter laughs at that. She thinks of some other poll working. Anyway, so I like, okay, elections worker. I've worked at 4 different elections, and well, let's see, where to start? Well, my friend, I had lunch with a friend today, and she's on a welcoming committee, and she would like to know if there's any pamphlets or any literature she can give people who move into the area near her that give all the information she needs to, they need to know as far as where to sign up to vote, where to do this, that. And the other thing, is there anything like that that can be handed over to somebody?
We can defer that because you're new, and please pause her time. Because you're new, we really, the board generally doesn't kind of engage with back and forth, but we obviously are extremely excited that your friend that you had lunch with wants to share information about voting and things along those lines. I would encourage you to reach out to Director Fall. Tate Fall.
The woman?
Yes, that would be the woman, yes, Director Fall. She is our elections director.
Okay.
There's also another member of her team here that facilitates communications, and they will provide you with the literature and the materials that we have that you can provide to your friend.
Okay.
Okay.
Where's my timer?
It's right there.
Should be right there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Totally new to speaking. Okay, the last 3 times I've worked the elections, I've been asked to go to this one place a little further from me. I didn't mind. Evidently, I don't know if I was a troublemaker or whatever. It was a place that they have hard time getting people to work it because of the location. And I've come to my friend that I had lunch with today, just kind of so happened, we were St. Patty's Day. She's in that precinct, and she has a lot of I'm older. She has a lot of friends who are even older. That it's off of Bell's Ferry. The name of the church it's just across 75, and they have a church, wonderful church there that has homeless population. They do breakfast, lunch, dinner, showers, laundry. So the homeless, in order to keep going there, they need to behave themselves, and they've always been wonderful and gracious and not intimidating to me. But she says some of these older people are intimidated by that location for two reasons. One, most of the parking is up above, and they have to walk down a hill to get down. There are 3 places. One is handicapped. The other 2 are available when they're available, and people don't know that they can park there. But of course, during the busier elections, they have to maybe wait for a spot. So, and I know from the people I've talked to, there's been numerous complaints or requests that it change. There's a great church across the street, flat parking. The prior location was also flat. And I feel, and they feel, that they don't always want to come and vote, these older people. And there are elderly, like 55 plus, or I don't know, 65. There's several communities where they're just for the older people in that precinct. And so we don't know how many people are, I guess you'd call it disparaged or whatever from actually going there to vote. Yes, they can get the early voting, so on the ballots, but if so many people want to vote in person, they don't feel comfortable. They're not comfortable from the walk down and the walk back up, but also from this homeless population that I have never had a problem with. They're always been kind, considerate, but somebody who's older they're intimidated by these older people. They feel uncomfortable. They're not used to that feeling of, people walking around with all their stuff. And so I'm feeling that it's sort of like voter suppression, which we do not want to have voter suppression with all, not only in our county or our state or the country. We don't want voter suppression. And so that, I would petition, she and others have written the paperwork out, I guess more than once, and have not ever heard back. And I'd like to petition, or whatever I can do, to ask you to understand what these people are going through. I'm old. I can only
Understood.
imagine.
I appreciate the sentiment, Ms. Clark, and I'll note, Ms. Fall, I believe we know the location. I've visited that location, and we have had comments about it,
Yeah.
so it is on our radar. All right, thank you. Moving next to Mr. Hugh Norris.
Good afternoon, Board. Hugh Norris, 27-year resident of Cobb County. I had one topic in mind today, but after witnessing the pledge, I think I have 2 topics. Just wanted to reiterate what I've said before. And by the way, I am a Vietnam-era veteran. I take the Pledge of Allegiance very seriously. And the Pledge of Allegiance is to our flag and our form of government, republic. We have one member here that refuses, Ms. Mockbacker, to stand and acknowledge the pledge. It's on a personal level, it's her right to keep that reason or reasons, whatever, to herself. But when she sits in the dais, this is not personal. She's a board member here in Cobb County of a very important board. When we started coming to here, there was no pledge at all. When we have the brand new board member, Ms. Fisher, then things started to happen. The pledge was, after a while, wasn't immediate, the pledge was implemented. But now we still have Ms. Bacher sitting with her back to the flag, not acknowledging and pledging allegiance to our form of government. And I have tried over and over and over again. So let me add, not only do I look at her with big question marks as to her loyalty, I look at the rest of you all, including the director, with the same question mark. Everybody but Ms. Fisher. I wouldn't sit there and be silent about it. Now, my main issue was paper ballots. We know what the American people want, a large majority. We know what our president wants, he wants paper ballots. He's publicly stated it. We know our Georgia legislature totally stiffed us. We know our state board of elections is compromised. It's run by, I don't know what kind of label you want to put on the Waffle House guy. But my question, I guess it's a question of you all. What autonomy do you have? What ability do you all have as a local board here in Cobb County to save our elections and do your own paper ballots and give the middle finger to the rest of the Georgia corrupt legislature and government and so forth? It's a question. What can you do to save our vote with paper ballots, hand counted, one day, et cetera, et cetera? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Our final speaker is Ms. Christine Rossman.
Hello, Chair and board members. Christine Rosman, and I was just curious if we are going to have a breakdown of how much this whole election has cost, because it was the whole home rule makeup thing was all made up. And it wasn't, and I think that quantifying and qualifying how much that actually costs taxpayers, I think would be a really helpful number for us to know. And I'm just wondering if I can go ahead and do an open records request because of all the fees, staffing, sending out those nice little cards for people that don't know what district they're in. Just all of those fees, because I've heard anywhere from hundreds of thousands of dollars to in the millions. And I'm just curious if that's going to be something, and I can certainly put that open records request in to you, to the Board of Commissioners, because it's really easy to spend other people's money when you're not held accountable. And if there's never any accountability, then it's like, well, we'll do this or we'll try this. And, you know, a lot of people are feeling the pinch now, and a lot of people are. And then there tends to be a lot of resentment when there is no remorse, no accountability. Would like for you guys to be accountable. You should be accountable. And it's like, I feel like I'm talking to a wall, but there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rossman. That concludes public comment. The next item on the agenda is new business. We'll first start with Director Fall's election report.
Thank you. We'll get my slides pulled up and we'll go through our numbers. So we will be going over what we were looking like pre-election day, on election day, our post-election day activities. Then we'll take a pause to have the board vote if they will certify the election. And then in a little bit, we'll look at the June PSC primary schedule proposal, and then the rest of those items I will cover in my director's update later on in the agenda. So pre-election day, AIP, we had a total of 1,443 voters voted early, 460 at the main office in Marietta, and 983 in the Smyrna Community Center in Southeast. And so those were our total voters for the 1 week of early voting that we had. This table gives you a breakdown of the numbers by site and by day, so you can see how we did that Monday through Friday at each site. You can see that obviously Smyrna had the big numbers there, so that gives you kind of an idea of what days were the most popular. As we got closer to the end of the week, it started to pick up for sure. And then we have absentee by mail. So 35 voters voted absentee by mail. We issued 43 ballots, and then 35 were returned. All 35 were counted. None needed to be cured. And then one was exchanged for someone to vote early. So 36 of those 43 voters did vote. Just one voted early voting instead. And then on election day, we have a chart that shows the turnout, so you can see it definitely picked up after that work kind of window. So this kind of gives you an average of what the numbers were for check-ins for each hour. So we started off really slow in the morning, picked up around lunchtime, and then picked up again kind of starting at the 4 p.m. hour. So post-election day, these are our official and complete numbers. You can see the same numbers that we looked at on Friday, since we had already counted the provisionals. So 1,977 ballots cast on election day, 1,443 voted early in person, 35 voted absentee by mail, and 6 voted provisionally. So we had a total of 3,461 voters for a total turnout of 3.13%. So that was our final numbers there. Again, the same numbers that we saw on Friday. The last item that we have for this election is the risk limiting audit. That'll take place tomorrow, March 18th at our office. It'll start at 9 a.m. And there are 3 teams. So since it was a Democrat-only runoff, only the Democrats can provide official observers to be in the space. But of course, the risk limiting audit is open to the public, and there's a public viewing area for anyone who wants to attend. So those are the items for this election. I know it was brought up in public comment regarding a costing. We're finishing up the payroll for the poll workers from the February election. So I think we're issuing those checks either last week or next week. And so once we have those checks issued, that'll give us our final number we need to complete the costing. And I can provide a copy of the costing once it's completed to the board, as well as, of course, anyone who wants to submit an open records request. We're just not finished with it quite yet because we don't have that final poll worker cost. So once that's done, then we'll work on this election, and then we'll continue to do that as we move throughout the year.
Okay, great.
So with that, I will flip back to the final numbers, and we can move on to the next agenda item.
Okay. Before we move on, I just want to give the board the opportunity to ask any questions of Director Fall that you all may have with respect to the report she just provided. Okay. Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is the certification of the results of the March 11th special primary election runoff as displayed on the screens for us all to see. I will go ahead and call for a motion to certify these results.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Mossbacher and seconded by Ms. Fisher to certify the results. Prior to calling for that vote, is there any discussion? Nope. Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor of certifying the results? 4 in favor, again noting that Mr. Bruning is not with us, so the motion passes unanimously, noting his absence. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Fall. Moving on to the next item on the agenda.
So next up, we're going to look at the proposed schedule for AIP for June 17th. So this is a special election. It's a statewide election for the Public Service Commission for Districts 2 and 3, but it is a statewide election. So all of our precincts will be open on June 17th. So we have Exhibit A in your packets. I also have it up on the screen here. The proposed early voting schedule. So I want to note that it'll start on Tuesday, May 27th. That's because that Monday is Memorial Day. So we'll be closed that day. It's a state holiday. So we're proposing for the first 2 weeks, starting May 27th through Saturday for those first 2 weeks, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the 4 sites. So that's 1 site per commission district. So that's how we divided those sites up there. And then the final week, we'll just do the second Sunday, the final Sunday, June 8th, from noon to 5, which is our typical Sunday voting time. And then that final week, June 9th through the 13th, Monday through Friday, would just be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Director Fall, I just want to note for those that may be looking at the AIP schedules as were applicable for the first two elections, the special primary and the special primary runoff, as compared to this is 3 weeks. I know you know and we know as to why it's 3 weeks. It might be helpful for anyone that's viewing that may not be aware of why this is a 3-week period versus the 1-week periods that we previously had. Will you share that with us?
Sure. So this is a statewide election, as I mentioned. So that means it's on the statewide election calendar. So the Secretary of State sets the dates. There's discretion for special elections with the period of voting for AIP. But since this is a statewide election, these dates were set forward by the Secretary of State, mandating that we be open the 3 weeks and the required 2 Saturdays. Both Sundays are optional, starting Tuesday the 27th and finishing on Friday the 13th.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anyone else have any questions or, for that matter, comments about the proposed schedule? Okay. Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the schedule as provided.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Efrat. The motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the AIP schedule for the June 17th PSC Special Public Service Commissioner election. All those in favor? Again, the motion passes unanimously, noting Mr. Bruning's absence. All right. With that, I believe, is there anything further that you have for us?
Just on to the next agenda item is the director's update, that's all.
Okay.
Nothing on AIP.
All right, the next item on the agenda actually is old business. Does anyone have any old business they want to bring forward? No. Okay. Yes, Ms. Fisher?
This wouldn't fall under old business, and I may have been amiss. I was amiss, not may have. I was. I would like to recognize,
Okay.
you have it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? All right, moving on to the director's update.
Thank you. So just a few updates that we have. So first, looking at all the departments, what we have going on. So elections, the next training schedule starts soon, so we'll start training for the 29th election, April 29th election, starting on April 7th, going through Thursday the 17th. Anyone who worked February and March will be able to attend training virtually except for provisionals. So that in-person training will be any provisional clerks, and it'll also be any new workers who have not worked previously this year. Most workers are returning for April from the previous 2 elections, so we're already on track to be fully staffed as soon as we get our 10X portal open this week. We have our area supervisor meeting tomorrow evening. And then I did want to note that we do have an upcoming partisan qualifying period, so these will be hosted at the parties, not at our office. So starting at 9 a.m. on April 1st through noon on April 3rd, the state level, the parties will be qualifying for those 2 PSC, Districts 2 and 3. So those will be qualified at the state level with the state parties, and then we'll receive the names from the Secretary of State upon the completion of qualification. And then also locally, we have the county surveyor positions. This was a position that was up last year and no one qualified. So we're going to run a special election in conjunction with the PSC election for that. If anyone chooses to qualify this year. So those interested can qualify at the county parties. So they can reach out to the county party chairs for information there. The parties have already been provided with the requirements for that position. So Judge Wolk is appointing someone for the interim until this position is filled by special election. So that'll be taking place April 1st through April 3rd. The prep center will begin logic and accuracy testing, or LNA testing, on March 31st. As always, that is open to the public. So anyone who's interested in learning more about our voting equipment can come to our office and observe the LNA testing. We're currently in the processing of finalizing all the ballot proofs. We sent the proofs to the candidates today. As now required, we give them 24 hours to proof the ballots to make sure their name, party, and incumbency status is correct. So those were emailed today. I've already heard back from 2 of the 4 candidates. And then, of course, they're working on resetting the equipment. So everything's already been picked up and working on flipping everything to start that LNA testing on the 31st. Registration is finishing up mailing out all of those District 4 cards that were returned for postage dues. They have about 1,500 of those left. So they're doing the research to make sure that they have the right information before we mail those out. So they're finishing those up. We have about 19,000 apps and updates to key since the special primary deadline that was in January. So they started keying those as soon as the election was over last week. And so March 31st is the voter registration deadline for the upcoming April 29th special election. So if you have any new registrations or updates, March 31st is the deadline there. And April 2nd is our keying deadline for that. And then that's also when we'll be turning around the Q1 voter registration cards. So we'll be getting that information and sending those out to any new registrants or people who updated their registrations within Cobb County. Absentee AIP has training on April 4th and 5th for AIP for the April election. And then the first day of AIP is Saturday, April 19th. And so that's the day after Good Friday. And then absentee by mail, the first ballot mail out will be April 7th. So that's the first day we're mailing out ballots for the April 29th election. And the ABM application deadline is April 18th. So that's the last day to get your absentee by mail applications in. So far for this election, as of 10 a.m. this morning, we have 62 ballots to be issued on April 7th. We received 91 total applications. 24 of those had been rejected, and then 5 were received over the weekend and were being processed this morning when I checked in with the team. And so far 62 with those 5 being processed. So that is the updates around the different divisions. As far as position vacancies, we have currently a 12.5% vacancy rate. We have a lot of movement going around. We had a couple of retirements, and so that allowed a lot of internal promotions. And then that leaves the previous position open, so we have a lot of full-time people moving into a more supervisory role, and then part-time people moving into full-time positions, seasonals moving into part-time positions. So it's been a lot of movement with a lot of positions opening up. So we've completed the interview process, and we'll announce at the end of the month the choice for assistant supervisor for absentee in person. Recruitment is closed pending interviews on 2 election technicians. Those are part-time positions. Those are our receptionists. And then we have several upcoming recruitments to highlight. So voter registration specialist 1, that's a full-time position. Part-time voter registration specialist. The part-time project coordinator is a position that I converted. So we still had a part-time GIS analyst position. So it was coded at a little bit higher of a rate than a voter registration specialist. And since we have a full-time GIS position that's filled very wonderfully, we don't need that part-time position in addition to her. So we're converting it over to a project coordinator to have someone do some project management for us, as well as some data analytics. So that's going to be a part-time position. We haven't decided if that division is going to stay in registration or if it's going to move into the admin department. So we're still finalizing that. We have a supervisor position in prep center that'll be open soon. Elections coordinator 1 also in the prep center. And then we'll be hiring a summer intern for communications. So we're really excited about that opportunity in the admin department, but specifically focused on communications. Next, I have an update on the Cobb County School District facilities. And before I get into that, I did want to address the concern from public comment about what I believe is likely to be East Piedmont 01 or Shady Grove Baptist Church. That is a facility that we're actively looking to relocate. We do have to have a sheriff's deputy there because of the unhoused population that's around that area. That's a concern from those poll workers. Although we've never had an issue, we have them there for opening and closing to be safe. So it's already on our radar to be replaced. Of course, the schools are a priority, and then others will take place after that. But we're working this year to get out of some of those facilities that require extra security, as well as consolidate some of our locations that are across the street from each other or down the street from each other. Now that we don't have the requirement to have one BMD per 250 registered voters, we have the flexibility to consolidate some of those locations. So we're looking forward to that. When we specifically look at the Cobb County School District facilities, we do have 20 active schools that we're currently in. 2 of those are high schools, 7 are middle schools, and 11 are elementary schools. So those are 20 active schools where there are students. We're in one inactive school. We call it the Old East Valley Elementary School because that's what it is. So that's just what we call it. And so we're still over there. And then, of course, we're in the Cobb County Adult Education Center as well. We'll continue to be in those 2 facilities, the inactive school and Cobb County Adult Ed. The school district has no issue with us being in those 2 facilities since they are not minors in those facilities. So we met with Superintendent Ragsdale on March 3rd, a bunch of county departments to discuss a bunch of different issues of where the school district intersects. I was one of those departments, and we discussed the following plan. So we have 9 active locations that we will vacate starting in 2026. So with the first election in 26, we'll no longer be in these 9 schools. These are locations where we were directly interacting with students, or there's open hallways or lack of security, going through main doors, having main doors be unlocked. So those are the 9 schools that we've identified as leaving. So if we have a December runoff, that'll be our last election in those 9 facilities. And then we're going to remain in the list of 11 active locations. These are locations where we use separate entrances. The school can still be secured. There's not direct access to any students. The school district is requiring that we provide a sheriff's deputy at each of these locations for the entire day while the school is in session. So for this year, that would be April 29th, and we're not in all 11 of these schools for April 29th since it's not countywide. April 29th, and then June is summertime, so we don't have to worry about that then. And then if we have a July runoff, November 4th is a school holiday, so we don't have to worry about any sheriff's deputies at any schools in November. It'd only be if we have a December runoff in any of the municipalities that we would have to provide a deputy there. So because of the sheriff's deputy requirements, it is still our goal to minimize a lot of the schools, especially the elementary schools that we're utilizing. We're hoping to get out of some of them by consolidating, like I mentioned, with other nearby precincts, because it does add up. Having sheriff's deputies there all day, it's a long day, and so this is a great interim plan to get us through next year, since it'll be such a big year. But we will still make it a priority to minimize the amount of schools that we're in. And then last, just to finish with the 2025 election calendar. So first 2 are checked off. Next one is April 29th. And then we have June 17th, the PSC statewide primary, potential runoff for July 15th. November 4th is the PSC statewide general and the municipal election, 6 of our 7 municipalities, everyone except for Smyrna. And then December 2nd is a potential municipal runoff. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have questions?
Thank you for the update on the schools. That's something that is personal to me, so I was very interested in that topic. And for the list of the schools that are going to remain after 2026, are we still trying to replace those at some point?
Yeah, likely after 26, just because it's such a big election year next year, we want to minimize how many sites we're changing. So as we look at consolidations with nearby precincts, we'll look to see if any of these schools could be consolidated to maybe a nearby church that we're already utilizing. But we'll likely be in these schools in 26 and then try to continue to minimize our presence in schools starting in 27.
And the school district was okay with that plan? when y'all presented it?
Superintendent Ragsdale said that he would present this to the school district at their meeting on the 20th, and that ultimately it is their decision. But it was him and the CCSD COO and CTO. They both felt good about this proposal, with the fact that sheriff's deputies will be present at all of these locations. And so it's ultimately up to the school board, but he said that he felt good about what we were handing them.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I have a few questions. Does anyone else have questions? No? Okay. The Q1 cards that we are going to send out, I know obviously we had the concern with the postage due. Are we confident and comfortable that we have resolved that with USPS such that we don't run into a similar situation with the cards going out? Are they going out in the same format? Are they going out in the standard format?
Sure, so they're gonna be the smaller standard card. They're still gonna be branded for Cobb County, so they're not gonna be the state card. And we're utilizing our own vendor, so we're able to use our permit number. So that way, if there is any postage due, it'll be charged to the permit number instead of being returned to sender.
Okay.
So we won't have that issue. It'll just charge us the forwarding cost for any of those people that have a forward on. And then the timeline is a lot tighter with our new vendor as opposed to the state's vendor. So we're gonna pull the list on April 3rd. Typically, to get the list from the state can take anywhere from 2 to 3 days. And then the vendor that we're utilizing to mail the postcards out can get the postcards turned around in 2 to 5 business days. It just depends on how large the mailing is.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then I note on the two positions, our receptionist, I believe both of them have been with us for a while. Are they relocating to a different department?
One was promoted, and then another receptionist left for a greater opportunity for her.
Okay, great. And then with respect to the project coordinator, you made reference to them undertaking, or the person in that role undertaking some data analytics. I probably would defer to Ms. Mossbacher. She's a little bit more familiar with some of the data analytics needs. Have you had any conversation around data analytics with those of us on the board, just given where data analytics has come into play with some of the issues that we've dealt with in the past?
I haven't. We just started the conversation with HR to get the position reclassified, so working on a base level description now. And then I'm happy to engage with Member Mossbacher, whoever is best suited. I know that this came because the board had requested something similar to this, so I think I have a good understanding of what the board as a whole would like to see, as well as what we as a staff need. But I'm happy to engage with the board for specifics that you might be looking for.
Okay. Member Mossbacher, can we rely upon you? It's your wheelhouse, so.
I'm very excited that we will have somebody
figured
who
you would
has
be.
that dedication and happy to provide insight where that's concerned.
Thank you.
Perfect. And I think that might have been it as far as the questions on your report. Thank you
Great,
for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have anything further for Director Fall? Nope. Moving on to board member comments. I generally defer and provide my comments last, but I do believe I want to go ahead and break from that tradition, if you will, and recognize a member of, or the passing of a member of our staff, a long-term member, that being Ms. Jennifer Hall, who unexpectedly passed last Wednesday, March the 13th. Was that Wednesday? I'm sorry. That was Thursday. And we'll just note that Ms. Hall joined our office in 2016, so she had almost a decade of service, having held various roles, moving from a part-time clerk to a poll manager to a full-time member, where she served in the absentee as well as the registration departments. And I guess you could say it was almost somewhat of a family business, in as much that her husband, Lamar, joined her in our office about 2 years after she joined us. And he continues to serve Cobb County voters as a part-time seasonal manager, and I just think it's appropriate to take a moment of silence, and I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to stop and just speak with her briefly on Tuesday, election night, and would not have guessed that we would receive a message a few short days later that she's no longer with us. So I would like to ask that we take a moment of some silence in recognition of her service to Cobb County and her service to our office. Thank you for that indulgence, and I want to open it up for any other board members that have comments. Okay. Mr. White, is there a need for executive session?
I'm going to give you two short updates on pending legal matters. So yeah, a motion for executive session for pending legal matters would be appropriate today.
Okay. So we'll entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation matters.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Mosbacher. It's been moved and properly seconded to move into executive session for the purposes stated. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. So for those of you that have not generally been with us, those of you that have, you know that this time when we move into executive session, we ask that everyone leave the boardroom. We will attempt to take care of our matters as quickly as possible. You would be invited in, but I will also note there's nothing further on the agenda after executive session, just making everyone aware of our upcoming meetings, that being our regular meeting in the month of April, to be held on April the 14th, and then which will be here, and then our election night meeting that will be held on April the 29th at our office located at 995 Roswell Street. So with that, if we could just ask that everyone leave the room, and we will work quickly.